The night before our baby was born, my mother-in-law sat me down and said, dead serious, "You're naming the baby after me or I'll make your life miserable." My husband just smiled like she was being adorable. "That's just Mom being sweet," he said. I laughed and told them, "Well then you're really gonna love the name I picked." Their faces? Absolutely priceless. I was 9 months pregnant. Do any day. It was our first kid. You'd think that alone would have been enough to stress me out. But nope. Denise, that's my mother-in-law, picked that exact moment to go full dictator on our lives. Denise's had always been a bit much. She's one of those women who thinks she's the smartest, most polished person in the room. Always overdressed. Always talking about her beauty queen days. And forever reminding everyone that a woman's worth comes from the elegance she brings to a man's home. Her words, not mine. She never liked me much. Thought I was too loud, too opinionated, too working class. I teach 8th grade English at a public school. Definitely not fancy enough for her taste. My husband, Scott, hates conflict. I mean, really hates it. The man will fold like a lawn chair just to keep the peace, especially with his mom. Around her, he practically disappears. Red flag? Sure. But love makes you ignore things you probably shouldn't. So there we were, night before I'm getting induced, and Scott suggests we go to his parents' house for dinner. Said it might help me relax. Spoiler, it didn't. Dinner was tense. Denise cooked like she was feeding royalty. Kept grabbing my belly without asking. Kept saying things like, "Oh, he'll have his father's jawline." Or "She'll be a tiny little dancer like me." Like this baby didn't get a say in who they were gonna be. After dessert, she asked me to stay back while Scott helped his dad in the garage. She sat across from me like a judge about to deliver a sentence and said, "You're naming this baby after me. Denise if it's a girl. Dennis if it's a boy. I've waited a long time for this. Don't screw it up." First I laughed. Thought she was joking. She wasn't. She leaned in, eyes cold, and said, "I have sacrificed everything for this family." She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I expect the same from you." Then, like she was in some dramatic movie, she paused, took a slow sip of her wine and added, "And if you don't? I'll make your life miserable. You have no idea what I'm capable of." I just stared at her. I'm pretty sure my jaw actually dropped. Meanwhile, the baby inside me was kicking like crazy. Honestly felt like they were just as mad as I was. I finally said, "You really think threatening a pregnant woman is gonna get your name on a birth certificate?" She smiled. Real calm. Real creepy. "I'm trying to protect this family's legacy," she said. Right then Scott walked back in. I turned to him hoping, praying, he'd say something. Anything. All I got was a shrug. "She's just being sweet in her own way," he said. Sweet. Sweet. Something in me just snapped. I smiled, and not a real one. No, this was that fake tight-lipped ohano kind of smile. "Then you're both gonna love the name I've picked," I told them. They both looked confused. Denise raised an eyebrow. "What name?" she asked. I grabbed my coat, stood up, and told her, "It's a surprise. You'll find out soon enough." And I left. Scott followed me out to the car, asking what that was all about. I didn't answer. I just needed to get out of there. I needed air. I needed space. That night I barely slept. My mind wouldn't stop spinning. Who did this woman think she was? Acting like she owned my baby. Like she could bully me into doing what she wanted. And worst of all, Scott didn't have the guts to stand up for me. The next morning I went into labor. It was long. It was rough. Most of it's a blur, honestly. But one thing I remember crystal clear, there was no way in hell I was naming my child after Denise. No. I had a way better idea. See, a few months back I'd gone through some old boxes in my mom's attic. I found letters and journals from my grandma Amelia. She passed away when I was little, but reading her words I felt like I really knew her. She was tough. She was kind. And she'd gotten out of an abusive marriage in the 1950s, which back then was practically unheard of. I'd already made up my mind. If we had a girl, she'd be named Millie. And if it was a boy, Miles. Simple. Strong. Family that actually meant something to me. We had a girl. And I named her Amelia Faith. When Denise showed up at the hospital later that afternoon, still thinking there'd be some big dramatic name reveal, I handed her the little announcement card. The second she read it, her face twisted like she just sucked on a lemon. "Who's Amelia?" she asked. I looked her dead in the eye. My grandmother, I said. A woman who actually earned the right to be honored. She didn't like that. She looked over at Scott like she expected him to fix it somehow. But Scott? He just looked down at the floor. So then she turned that cold stare back at me. You'll regret this, she said. And I didn't even hesitate. I already regret letting you anywhere near my child. There's more to this story. So much more. But that right there? That was the moment it really started. The war. The games. The petty revenge. And yeah, she absolutely tried to make good on that threat to make my life miserable. But let me tell you something, she had no idea who she was messing with. After that hospital scene, we didn't hear from Denise for a few days. Honestly, it was peaceful. Quiet. Almost weirdly nice. Scott was knee-deep in new dad duties. I was sore exhausted, figuring out breastfeeding and trying not to cry every time it hurt. And baby Millie was doing what all newborns do, eating, sleeping, crying, and pooping like it was her full-time job. But by day 4? Yeah, the peace shattered. I was in the nursery, nursing Millie, when I heard the front door open. Not knock. Not ring the doorbell. Open. My whole body froze. Scott was at the store grabbing groceries. I was home alone. I peeked out from the nursery, and there she was. Denise. In my house. With a key I never gave her. She called out, all fake cheerful, thought I'd surprise you and help out with the baby. Help? She didn't even call. Didn't ask. Just let herself in like she owned the place. I stood there in a milk-stained tank top, messy bun, baby strapped to my chest, and felt this wave of pure rage hit me. You need to leave, I told her. She smiled that fake little smile. Oh, don't be silly, she said. I'm family. I have every right to be here. Oh, hell no. But I didn't yell. I didn't lose it. I remembered something my therapist once told me, people like Denise feed off chaos. Don't feed them. So I smiled right back. Okay, I said real calm. If you're gonna be here, you'll need to follow my house rules. She raised an eyebrow like she thought I was kidding. Rules, she asked. Yep, I said. Rule number 1, you don't touch the baby without asking. She scoffed. I'm her grandmother. And I'm her mother. That shut her up for a second. She didn't like it. But she backed off, at least for the moment. The next few days were pure chaos. Denise kept showing up, acting like she was helping. Mostly she just criticized everything I did. How I held Millie. How I dressed her. How I fed her. And of course she kept bringing baby clothes, all pink, all glitter, all frills. Total princess overload. Half the stuff had little sayings like, Grandma's favorite, or worse, one onesie actually said, named after Grandma. And Scott? Absolutely useless. All he kept saying was, she just wants to be involved. So finally I asked him, do I matter? Do my feelings matter? He told me I was being dramatic. Fine. Cool. That's when I stopped arguing. And started planning. Step 1, I changed the locks. Quietly. No warning. Step 2, I bought a nanny cam. Hid it in this decorative clock in the living room. Step 3, I waited. One morning I told Scott I was gonna take a nap. Instead, I packed up Millie and drove over to my friend Megan's place. Told Scott I'd be back in a few hours. He didn't even ask. Sure enough, Denise showed up. And guess what? She used a key. Not the one I gave her, the one she'd copied behind my back. Later that night, I watched the whole thing on the nanny cam footage. She walked right in like she owned the place. No knocking. No calling. Just straight up trespassing. She went straight to Millie's crib. Empty. Then she started snooping. Opening drawers. Going through cabinets. Even dug around in my bedside table. And then I watched, just stunned, as she pulled out my postpartum meds, took pictures of the bottles and mumbled under her breath, maybe this will help me prove she's unstable. My hands were shaking. She was trying to set me up. Trying to paint me as some unfit mother so she could manipulate Scott, maybe even the courts. I called a lawyer friend. Told him everything. He said document it. All of it. So I did. The next day I confronted her. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked up, calm as ever, and handed her a little USB drive. What's this? She asked. Footage, I said. Of you breaking into my house, invading my privacy, and trying to build a case against me. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth to speak. I didn't let her. If you ever come near my child again without my permission, I will file a restraining order. And I will go public with everything. She tried to laugh it off. You wouldn't. Try me. She stormed out. Scott? Scott was furious. At me. Said I was being cruel. Said I was destroying his family. I told him no. Your mother is doing that. And if you don't see it, maybe you should go stay with her for a while. And he did. He left. For 2 days. Honestly, I didn't care. I had Millie. That was all I needed. When he finally came back, he was quiet. Different. Like something inside him had cracked. I saw the footage, he said. I didn't want to believe she could be like that. She is. He just nodded. Then he said something I never thought I'd hear come out of his mouth. I want to go no contact. But Denise? She wasn't done. Not even close. She started spreading lies to anyone who would listen. Family. Friends. Neighbors. And then she called CPS. Yeah. Child Protective Services. Claimed my house was unsafe. Claimed I was unstable. Claimed Scott had moved out because he was afraid for Millie. All lies. But the thing is, we had proof. Footage. Emails. Witnesses. The CPS worker saw right through it. She was kind. Understanding. She even apologized for the visit. Our marriage was cracking. I was running on fumes. Scott was sinking into something like depression. And Denise? She wasn't done. She had one more move left. And it changed everything. After the CPS call flopped, I figured maybe, just maybe, she'd finally crawl back into whatever cold little hole she came from. Nope. About 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, a real, printed letter, typed up, signed, and on what looked like OBGYN clinic letterhead. It said the clinic was deeply concerned about reports of postpartum mental instability and was recommending I be placed under psychiatric observation. My stomach dropped. It looked official. It had my name, my doctor's name, even what looked like her signature. But I knew it was fake. Because 2 days before that, I'd had a regular follow-up appointment. My actual OB hugged me on the way out and said, "You're doing great. Don't let anyone get in your head." So no, this wasn't a mistake. This was Denise. I called the clinic. Emailed them a scanned copy of the letter. They were horrified. The clinic director called me personally and said, "This didn't come from us." The letterhead was copied, but the content and signature? All fake. I filed a police report for forgery. Then I sat down with my lawyer friend again. He read the letter and looked me straight in the eye. "She's building something bigger," he said. "And she's not doing it alone." I didn't get it. Not yet. Until the court summons showed up. Family court. Emergency petition for temporary custody filed by Denise. She was suing for visitation rights. My hands were shaking so bad I had to sit down. She wasn't just trying to be around the baby. She wanted legal access. Court-ordered rights. Her petition claimed I'd manipulated Scott, isolated him, and wouldn't let her see the baby. She said she was worried for Millie's safety. She included fake text messages. Screenshots that were clearly altered. And right there in the documents, that same forged OB letter. She wanted to paint me as unstable. Unfit. Dangerous. But I didn't cry. What I felt was something colder. Sharper. Focused. It was survival mode. I started building my case. I printed every email. Every text. Screenshots of her messages. The nanny cam footage of her entering my house, going through drawers, taking pictures. The clips of her saying she'd make my life miserable. The voice memos I'd started recording every time she visited, just in case. I had everything. The court date was 3 weeks out. Longest 3 weeks of my life. Scott was a wreck. Full of guilt, barely holding it together. But even he admitted she's not gonna stop until a judge tells her to. He finally agreed to submit a statement. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. Just simple and honest. My wife is a good mother. My mother is lying. When the day came, Denise showed up like she was headed to a garden party. Floral dress. Pearls. That smug little smile on her face. She really thought she had it in the bag. But the judge? The judge saw straight through her. We laid out everything clearly, calmly, and in order. The clinic director testified in person. Said the letter was fake, that Denise was under investigation for fraud. My lawyer walked the court through it all: the trespassing, the nanny cam footage, the forged letter, the CPS stunt, the whole mess. It was almost overwhelming. Then the judge turned to Denise and asked directly, "Did you write or help create this letter?" She denied it. Of course she did. That's when my lawyer dropped the hammer. We had pulled the metadata from the original Word document. A tech forensic guy traced it back to a computer link to Denise's email. Same font. Same name. Same lies. Boom. The whole courtroom went dead silent. Then the judge turned to Denise and said, "Plain as day, your behavior isn't just disturbing, it's dangerous." She told Denise that if she tried to contact me, Scott, or Millie without written permission, she'd slap her with a restraining order on the spot. That's when Denise lost it. She started yelling right there in court. She stole my son. She tricked him. She turned him against me. The bailiffs had to escort her out. The judge gave us everything we asked for: full custody, no visitation, no contact, and a permanent court record that would follow her anywhere, so she couldn't pull this stunt again in another city or under another name. It should have felt like the end. But it didn't. Because people like Denise? They don't stop. They just pause. And sure enough, about a week after court, I got a Facebook message from someone I didn't even know existed, Denise's sister. Let's call her Gloria. Her message said, "I'm sorry about what happened. Denise is not well. Please understand she's hurting." I didn't reply. 3 days later, another letter showed up at our door. Handwritten. From Gloria. Begging for a second chance. Saying Denise was spiraling, losing everything. Promising she was willing to apologize if I would just let her see Millie one time. One time. The arrogance of that nearly knocked the breath out of me. I sat on the floor holding that letter, Millie napping beside me, and for the first time in a long time I didn't feel angry. I felt tired. Not just tired in my body. Tired in my soul. That night, I told Scott straight out, "We're done with your family. No more second chances. No more talks. If anyone contacts me again, I'll file for harassment." He nodded. Quiet. But different. Something in him wasn't right. Over the next few weeks, I noticed him pulling away. Distant. Distracted. At first, I figured, okay, stress. Maybe guilt. Then one night, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed. I wasn't proud of it. But I looked. The text was from Gloria. She still doesn't know? My stomach dropped. I scrolled up. And there it was. Dozens of texts. From before the court hearing. From during it. From after. Scott had been talking to Gloria and Denise the whole time. Telling them everything. What our lawyer said. What evidence we had. How mad I was. What I was planning. And the worst part? He texted Gloria, "I think she's overreacting. But I have to support her." Overreacting. This man watched his mother fake a doctor's letter to steal custody of our baby, and he thought I was the problem? I didn't wait. I confronted him right there, standing in the doorway. He looked guilty as hell. "You lied to me," I said. "You told me you were done with her." He stumbled over his words. Tried to spin it. Said he was just trying to keep the peace. Said he didn't tell them everything, just enough to calm them down. I was shaking. "You gave them ammo," I told him. "What if they'd use that to win in court?" He didn't have an answer. That night, I packed a bag for me and Millie. We left. I went to my sister's place in Bend, Oregon. I didn't file for divorce. Not yet. But the next morning I sent Scott a message. "You need to decide if you're going to be a husband and a father or your mother's puppet." 2 days went by. Nothing. Then finally he sent me an email. Short. Cold. "I'm sorry. I love you both. But she's still my mom." That was it. That was all he had to say. He picked her. So I picked me. I filed for full custody. And I had more than enough proof of emotional abuse, manipulation, lack of support. I didn't even ask for child support. I didn't want his money. I just wanted him gone. The judge gave me everything I asked for. And Denise? She didn't take it well. She sent more letters. One had a Bible verse about forgiveness underlined in angry red ink. Another one said, "One day Millie will grow up and wonder why she doesn't know her grandma." Oh, she will. And I'll tell her the truth. So I did something Denise never saw coming. I printed everything. Every document. Every letter. Every fake screenshot. Every lie. I put it all in a sealed folder. Labeled it, "The Truth About Grandma Denise." It's locked in my fireproof box. And one day when Millie's old enough, I'll give it to her. Not to spread hate, but to give her the truth. Fast forward 3 years. I'm remarried now. Happier. Calmer. I trust again, but I verify. Millie's 4. She's bright. Funny. Fierce. Exactly like her name. She doesn't remember Denise. She doesn't remember Scott either. He moved to Texas. With Gloria. I haven't heard from him since he signed over his parental rights. Yeah, he really signed them away just to avoid paying child support. That's how deep his cowardice ran. And Denise? Last I heard, through an old mutual friend, she got caught forging another document. This time for her church. Got sued. Lost everything, her job, her reputation. Now she's living in a trailer outside of Dallas, telling anyone who'll listen that her evil daughter-in-law stole her grandchild. I guess that's how she sleeps at night. Me? I sleep just fine. And sometimes when I watch Millie laughing, running wild and free, living a life completely untouched by that woman's poison, I think to myself, you were right, Denise. I didn't name her after you. But I did name her after a warrior. And that's a legacy you'll never ever touch.